Cluster B personality disorders are characterized by dramatic, overly emotional, and unpredictable thoughts and behavior. From Ars Longa Media, this is Cluster B, scientifically informed, expert insights into the 4 Cluster B personality types: antisocial, borderline, narcissistic, and histrionic personality disorder. Here's today's host, Dr. Todd Grande.
Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, what is the difference between borderline personality disorder and histrionic personality disorder? If you find this video to be interesting or helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel. That way you won't miss anything new. Now, when we talk about borderline and histrionic personality disorders, we're talking about 2 personality disorders that are in cluster B of the personality disorders in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. Cluster B is the dramatic, emotional, and erratic cluster. And when we think about borderline personality disorder and the comorbidity that we see with it, meaning the other disorders that tend to co-occur with it, we think of personality disorders including narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, dependent personality disorder, and of course histrionic personality disorder. Now, the cluster B personality disorders include antisocial, histrionic, borderline, and narcissistic. Dependent personality disorder is actually a cluster C personality disorder. So it's in the same cluster as avoidant and obsessive compulsive personality disorder. So in comparing borderline and histrionic personality disorders, first I'll take a quick look at the symptom criteria for each. So with histrionic personality disorder, we see there are 8 symptom criteria and at least 5 are required for a diagnosis. So here we see being uncomfortable when one is not the center of attention, inappropriate, sexually seductive, or provocative behavior, rapidly shifting and shallow emotions, using one's physical appearance to draw attention, an excessively impressionistic style of speech that tends to lack detail, an exaggerated expression of emotions, being theatrical, being suggestible, and regarding relationships as more intimate than they really are. Moving over to borderline personality disorder, we see here there are 9 symptom criteria, but again, 5 or more are required for a diagnosis. So here we have making frantic efforts to avoid abandonment, having an unstable relationship cycle. This is a cycle of idealization and devaluation, identity disturbance, impulsivity, suicidal behavior, affective instability, a feeling of emptiness, constant anger, and paranoid ideation or dissociative symptoms. So when looking at the similarities between these 2 disorders, we can see there are quite a few. They share, in many cases, the rapidly shifting emotions, the strong emotional expressions, the attention-seeking behavior, impulsivity, and the tendency to be manipulative. Characteristics we would expect to see with borderline personality disorder in many cases, but not see with histrionic, would include the anger, the feelings of emptiness, the self-destructive component, and the identity disturbance. Components we would expect to see with histrionic personality disorder and not often see with borderline personality disorder would include being suggestible, that impressionistic style of speech, and the inappropriate, sexually seductive, and provocative behavior. Now, adding to the difficulty in differentiating these 2 disorders is the fact that they are comorbid about 10 to 15% of the time, and with cluster B personality disorders, we expect high comorbidity within that cluster anyway. So there are a lot of personality disorders with similar characteristics that tend to be seen in the same individuals. So all this comorbidity just makes it all the more difficult to differentiate histrionic from borderline personality disorder. There are also other factors to consider when trying to differentiate these 2 diagnoses. One is the debate over whether histrionic personality disorder is really a distinct set of symptoms or just a variant of borderline personality disorder. There are many researchers in the mental health treatment community that believe that histrionic is in fact a variant and should not be a separate diagnosis. And I think this belief actually has an effect on how mental health clinicians diagnose. I think there's this tendency to overlook histrionic personality disorder and to diagnose borderline personality disorder instead. There's more information available about borderline personality disorder than histrionic in terms of the course of the disorder, treatment, in terms of the number of articles written about borderline personality disorder. So there are a lot of reasons why a clinician may be biased to diagnose borderline personality disorder. Now, this bias wouldn't have to be deliberate. This could be an unconscious bias. But I think this does happen. I think that histrionic personality disorder tends to get overlooked. So there are a number of reasons why histrionic and borderline personality disorders become confused with one another. And we really do need more research on both personality disorders. But in particular, we certainly need more on histrionic to understand what types of treatment protocols would be appropriate when we see histrionic personality disorder, regardless of whether it's comorbid with another personality disorder or with another mental disorder in general.
For more content like this, check out Healthy Toxic, another podcast from Ars Longa Media, all about what makes or breaks relationships, including issues related to narcissism, narcissistic abuse, and how personality disorders affect relationships. Ars Longa Vita Brevis. Learn more at arslonga.media.